I'm Stuart from Fab Lab Maker Hub, and welcome to this Cruinniú workshop on building a siege catapult. By now you should have got your catapult kit. There's the one sheet, the elastic band hopefully at the top, and a straw and a very large bamboo cocktail stick. We can put those to one side for the moment because we're going to be using those later on. So the first thing we're going to do is get all the parts that we need to make the catapult. So I'm just going to punch them out. They should come out quite easily. If I just push down, the parts should just kind of snap out of the board quite easily. Just be a bit careful that you don't break them as you're doing it, but they should just pop out quite easily if you just press down on them. There's a few little parts as well that might be a bit tricky, especially the little, let's just show you here, the little bit there, that one. That's good. And then push this one through. Don't worry if you break the bits on the sheet here, that's okay, because this bit we're going to just put to one side. Okay, so now I'm going to have my parts here. I'm just going to put them all out so we can see them there. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is try and put this together. If you grab the piece with the Maker Hub on it, and if you grab the other piece here, it's a square piece with a notch in the middle. Those two pieces go together. Now, pushing these together, they're meant to be a tight fit, so you can have to give it a little bit of a push to get them together. But don't push too hard in case you break it, but give it a bit of a push so that it goes together like that. There we go. So we should end up with that piece like that. That's going to be the start of our arm. The next thing we want to do is grab these tiny little pieces here. These are going to make our bucket for our, and they go in like that. So there's 4 of those. They push together like that, and like that, and like that. So we should end up with the arm. That's the catapult arm. I'll just hold it up to the close-up camera here and give you a look at that one. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to make the actual sides of the catapult. So we have 2 sides here. One's got a picture of an actual catapult on it, and the other one has our catapult kit. So what we want to do is grab this piece here and show close up to the camera. It's got the 2 notches and the hole in the middle, and this goes across the back of the catapult like that, and the other one goes in there like that. So we should end up with a device like that. If I hold it up to the camera here as well. There we go. Okay. So now we need to take our catapult arm and put that in the front there. So our catapult arm goes in the front there. Make sure that the bucket is facing upwards. So if it's facing upwards, that's fine. What you don't want, and I'll show you what you don't want, is for it to be facing downwards like that. You don't want it facing downwards. That's wrong. We need it to be facing upwards like this. Okay, so next thing we need to do is grab this piece here, which is the kind of cross brace along the top, and that should just slide in quite easily along there. So now we have our catapult arm, and it should stop when it hits the cross brace there. Okay, last thing to do is we want to make our little locking mechanism. If we go to the back of the catapult, there's a hole here, and we're going to use this little pin. So the pin will go through the hole on the lever here, and then it will connect in through the hole on the back there. You need to give it a bit of a push just to get it to go through, but once it does go through, you should be able to move the lever up and down like that. I'll show it from the top view there as well. Okay, so now that lever will hook in to the hole just underneath the bucket. Might need to just give it a bit of a pull just to get it to lock, but it does lock into the bucket there. That's going to be our trigger to release the catapult. Now we need to put our elastic band around to give the catapult some spring power. So I'm going to grab my sheet and take the elastic band off. So if I grab the elastic band, what I'm going to need to do is, if I try and get it from the side angle here in the back, is pull it so that the elastic band comes around the front, and there's two loops at the back. Now I'm going to have to try and pull that quite tightly over my catapult arm, and then there's a little notch on the back of the arm here, and the elastic band can sit into that notch and to hold it in place. So now you should have, I'll show it from the front here, the elastic band hooked around the front and then hooked around the back as well. Hooked around the front and then hooked around the back. And what we can do now is bring the arm down and lock it in place with our trigger. Next thing we need to do is find a piece of paper. Here's a piece of paper. I'm just going to scrunch that up into a ball. Make a little ball with the piece of paper. There we go. Okay. Sit that on my catapult. Hold the catapult at the back. Release the trigger. Whee! And off it goes. There we go. And grab another piece of paper. Make another one. Pull that back down. Lock that in place. Put that on there. And 3, 2, 1, go! It's gone right over the other side of the room now. It's pretty powerful. So that's the catapult all built. So what I'm going to do now is move on to making a target that we can shoot at. So we have a catapult, but now we need a target. Okay, I'm going to show you how to make a swinging target that we can use our other bits and pieces, the straw and the bamboo stick. What you're going to need to try and find is a cardboard box. I just got this one from the supermarket. You can use cereal boxes or just any kind of cardboard box, just regular kind of cardboard box. What I'm going to do is grab my template that we punched all the pieces from. I'm going to put that on top of there, and I'm just going to draw around it with a pencil. Just roughly draw around there. Like that. There we go. Just draw around so I have a big square in the middle. And I'm going to grab my scissors and cut out that square. So we have our hole cut in our box. Hang on to this piece of cardboard because we're going to need this as well. Just going to put the box to one side for a moment. If you've got a plate or anything kind of round, again, I'm just going to trace around this. Make a nice round circle. And again, I'm just going to cut this out. There we go. So I have a nice round disc. That's going to be our target. Now's the time that you can decorate this. I'm going to grab some pens and I'm going to make a bit of a target in the middle here. Just colour that in. It's going to be the bullseye. And some purple. Let's do them around the outside. There we go. There we go. Okay, so there's my target. So for the next part, we're going to need some sellotape. Grab your sellotape. The idea here is that the target is going to swing backwards and forwards inside our box. So the target's going to swing backwards and forwards inside the box. And the way we're going to do that is to push the bamboo stick through. Now we might need to just cut down the straw to fit on the back. So I'm going to cut down the straw so it fits in the back there like that. If I put the straw in the center and put the bamboo stick through, what's going to happen is the target is just going to flap backwards. It's not going to spin all the way around. What we're going to need to do is we're going to need to put the straw just slightly above the center of the target and sellotape the straw just above the center. Check that. So now if I put my straw through, so that spins quite nicely. What we can do to make it spin even better is we can put a little bit of a weight, extra weight down the bottom, which makes it kind of flip over. So if you grab your piece of cardboard and if we just cut a square of cardboard and fold that over and tape that down the bottom. There we go. That just gives it a little bit of extra weight, which makes it kind of spin much better. Okay, next thing to do is to grab your cardboard box and grab the target and put it down the bottom, because we want it to, when we want it to spin, we want it to spin up. Grab some more tape and tape the cocktail stick to either side, and there, like that. That's pretty good. Now if I hold this up here, we should see that our target should spin around quite nicely, and there's enough space at the top for it to come up and spin around. So there's our spinning target. Now all we need to do is try the catapult out with it. Of course, you can always use other things to make targets with. For instance, some Jenga blocks. And have your favourite Lego minifigures. Okay, now that we've built our catapults and our targets, let's just have a look at the history and the science of catapults. Well, what are catapults? Well, we have one in front of us. A catapult, though, is defined as a ballistic device used to launch a projectile a great distance without the aid of gunpowder. Well, our ballistic device is the little model you have in front of you. The projectile we've been using is a scrunched up ball of paper. Ballistics is really what's called the science of throwing things. It's a whole branch of physics that's concerned with looking at how objects move when they're thrown or pushed via a large force. And projectiles are any objects that are thrown with a force. So in our case, the object is the scrunched up ball of paper. But of course, in medieval times, they would have used larger catapults to throw rocks at castle walls to try and break them down. So who invented the catapult? Well, no one knows exactly for sure, but we do know that they were used long ago in BC times by the ancient Greeks. And in fact, the word catapult comes from the Greek words to throw downwards. And the first catapults were very similar to modern crossbows. They were pulled back and they were shot arrows or long poles to try and hit people. You know, in the army, if they were trying to shoot at somebody, they would pull these back and let them go, and they would shoot out kind of arrows. So what were they used for? Well, mostly they were used in armies because there were no guns or bombs or anything like that, because gunpowder hadn't been invented back then. Nobody had worked out how to make gunpowder and how to make guns. They had to use other weapons, and mostly the people they were fighting with were inside big, large castles or strongholds. So what they used were these things called siege engines. So catapults were a type of siege engine. And there are other types of structures, and they were usually large wooden structures. Battering rams to try and break down doors, or catapults to try and fire rocks at the castle walls. And also these big towers that they would kind of push up against the castle walls to try and scale up the wall and jump over the top to get into the castle. So all these things were called siege engines, and the catapult was just one of the siege engines that were used. There are quite a few different types of catapults. One of the first ones is this one, which is the ballista, and this is the one I was talking about. This is the giant type of crossbow. You can see there they kind of pulled back a rope and put either small rocks or, like I say, they put arrows in them and they fired them. As you can see, they couldn't really fire very big things. They were mostly used for trying to hit people, maybe sort of soldiers that are on top of castle wall. They were trying to hit the people on top of the castle wall. but they didn't really do much damage. The other type of catapult that they invented was this one called the springald. This is kind of similar to the crossbow, but it's mounted in a tower, and it was kind of a bit easier to move, and they could move this thing up and down and hide inside it and then pull the arrows back and fire them. So that was another type. The type that became really popular is this type, which is called the trebuchet, which is a slingshot type of catapult. So this uses a big heavy weight on one end of an arm, and the arm kind of swings round and round, and there's not a bucket, but it's a bag almost that the big rock would sit inside, and the heavy end would go down and the bucket would swing up, and it would kind of fire kind of slingshot type of way on a big kind of seesaw arm. The trebuchet became really important because it was able to lift and fire really heavy rocks quite a long distance. So the mangonel is the type of catapult that we've built here today, and this uses ropes or elastic under tension to fire missiles or projectiles, or sometimes they're even called payloads. And so you can see there in the picture, it looks very similar to the one we built, with an arm that pulls back. You let it go with the rope, and you had a bucket which you could sit your projectile or your payload in, and it would shoot up and then stop at the top of the frame and carry on going. Let's have a dig into the science of catapults. So catapults use elastic force or elasticity to provide energy. Now, elasticity is the property of some materials like rubber bands and even some ropes to always want to return to their original shape when stretched. Now, everything has elasticity, even things that you wouldn't even think about, like a steel bar has a certain amount of elasticity. You can bend a steel bar and it will want to try and go back to its original shape. But some materials have a lot of elasticity, and we can use that elasticity to power our catapults. So what happens is, when we stretch the rubber bands, the energy in that rubber band, when it's stretched out, we're using that energy and we're transferring that energy to the arm of the catapult. So when we release our catapult, the energy that's stored in that rubber band is transferred to the arm of the catapult when it's released, and that makes the arm shoot up. And the cross brace at the top stops the arm as it's in motion, but of course there's all that energy is still contained in the arm, and the force pushes the object that's contained in the bucket onwards, and that's what we call momentum. The momentum of the arm when it stops is transferred into the object, and that forces it to fire. So in medieval times, the maths and the physics behind how catapults worked, they weren't really widely understood. A Roman soldier or an ancient Greek soldier wasn't standing on the battlefield with a calculator working out how far his catapult's going to shoot his rock. They kind of used trial and error, a bit like we're doing when we're firing our catapults. But nowadays, we understand and we can predict how far an object will travel using equations. And that's the equation there. I'm not expecting anybody to work it out or understand it. I kind of barely understand it myself. But if you want to work out exactly how far an object will travel, you can work it out quite accurately by making measurements. Now, our catapult, even though it's quite small, it's quite powerful. But you may have noticed it's not very accurate. It takes quite a bit to aim it. But in medieval times, they weren't really looking for accuracy. They were looking for power. They were trying to smash down castle walls and get into them. So accuracy was not really what they were after. What I'd like you to try and do is experiment with different projectiles and see how far you can catapult them. Don't put anything too heavy in there, and always stand well back from the catapult and make sure nobody's standing in front of it. But you can try catapulting maybe scrunched up paper, or if you can find maybe like a ping pong ball or a very kind of small toy or something, you can try and catapult maybe one of your Lego minifigures and see how far you can get them going. So we want to see your creations. We've shown you ours, we want to see yours. We're going to create a short video of everybody's catapults and targets to share on the Leitrim Arts and the Creative Island website. So if you could, we would really like you to use your phones to film some of the short clips of your catapults in action and your targets. If you can decorate them up and make them look medieval, that would look fantastic. And you can email the clips, or if you have WhatsApp on your phone, then you can WhatsApp the clips to me and we'll send you the link to watch the video once we've completed it. So thanks for watching today, and I hope you have fun with your catapults.